There comes a moment when life feels heavier than usual, when even the things that once inspired you start to feel meaningless. You wake up tired, you speak less, and your thoughts echo louder than the world around you. That's not failure, that's a signal. A quiet reminder that it's time to stop running and start resetting. Number 1, the burnout illusion. Burnout isn't just about exhaustion. It's a deep emotional silence that creeps in slowly, so quietly that you hardly notice it's there until you no longer recognize yourself in the mirror. It starts with small compromises, working an extra hour, saying yes when your mind is screaming no, pretending you're fine because that's what everyone expects. It's not just physical fatigue, it's a collapse of the spirit, the slow erosion of clarity and purpose. And the illusion of burnout is that we believe it means we've failed, that we're not strong enough, not disciplined enough, not built for the grind. But that's not true. Burnout is your body's desperate way of protecting you. It's your mind's alarm system saying, stop, you've drifted too far from yourself. It's not punishment, it's a signal. We often glorify the chaos of being busy, equating exhaustion with success. We wear our tiredness like armor, convinced that being overwhelmed is proof of importance. But in doing so, we become disconnected from the very reason we started. The projects that once gave us life begin to feel like chains, and the dreams we once nurtured start feeling like burdens. The burnout illusion tells us that if we just keep pushing, we'll eventually feel fulfilled again. It convinces us that the answer to depletion is more effort, more speed, more sacrifice. Yet every time we push past that inner voice telling us to rest, we lose another piece of ourselves. We keep climbing a ladder that leads nowhere, blinded by the belief that movement alone equals progress. Burnout doesn't happen because we're weak. It happens because we ignore the quiet boundaries that keep us balanced. It's the aftermath of constantly pouring from an empty cup, of giving while refusing to receive, of showing up for everyone else while abandoning your own needs. We think strength means endurance, but real strength lies in awareness. The awareness to recognize when your energy is no longer aligned with your purpose. The awareness to stop before your body stops for you. The illusion is that rest is a delay, that slowing down means losing momentum. But in truth, rest is a recalibration. It's where you regain the focus and depth that constant motion steals from you. The most painful part of burnout is that it makes you question your own worth. You start to believe that your tiredness is proof of inadequacy, that if you were truly capable, you wouldn't feel so drained. But burnout is not evidence of weakness. It's evidence that you cared too much for too long without replenishing yourself. It's a symptom of passion mismanaged, not passion lost. You didn't fail by reaching your limit. You failed by believing you never had one. When you finally allow yourself to pause, to breathe, to do nothing for a while, you begin to see that burnout was never an ending. It was a mirror reflecting how far you've drifted from your center and an invitation to return home to yourself. Number 2, breaking the momentum trap. There's a strange kind of pressure that comes from momentum. Once life starts moving quickly, once you've built a rhythm, a pace, a reputation, it becomes terrifying to even think about slowing down. You convince yourself that if you stop even for a moment, everything you've built will collapse. The fear of losing momentum becomes stronger than your need for clarity. You wake up running, you fall asleep thinking, and your days blur together in an endless cycle of doing without feeling. It's not that you don't care anymore, it's that you've lost the space to breathe. The trap of momentum isn't just physical, it's deeply psychological. You start mistaking speed for direction, busyness for purpose, and motion for meaning, but all movement isn't progress. Sometimes it's avoidance disguised as productivity. You keep saying, I just need to get through this week, but the weeks never end. You push through the exhaustion, the doubts, the small cracks forming inside your motivation, because stopping feels like failure. You become addicted to the illusion of progress, checking boxes, meeting deadlines, chasing numbers, while your inner world begins to starve. You forget what it's like to do something from genuine interest or peace. Everything becomes about continuation, about maintaining the image of success, about not falling behind. And that's how momentum traps you. It convinces you that you're winning while quietly pulling you away from what actually matters. The more you do, the less you feel connected to any of it. You start to move faster, but inside you feel slower. Breaking that momentum requires more courage than starting ever did. It demands that you confront the silence you've been avoiding, the questions you've been postponing, the emotions you've buried under deadlines, because when you stop, everything you've been running from catches up. The thoughts you muted, the pain you numbed, the emptiness you ignored, they all resurface. That's why people keep moving. The noise is easier than the stillness, but the stillness is where truth lives. The trap isn't the speed, it's the fear of stillness. Once you sit in that quiet space, you begin to see how much of your momentum was driven by fear of being irrelevant, unseen, or forgotten. You realize how often you've confused activity with purpose, and how rare it is to actually feel present in what you're doing. When you finally choose to step out of the cycle, it's disorienting at first. The world keeps spinning, the messages keep coming, and the pressure to rejoin the rush is constant. But slowly, your vision clears. You start noticing the details again, the sound of your own breathing, the texture of your thoughts, the weight of your emotions. You begin to remember what genuine direction feels like. Breaking the momentum trap isn't about quitting everything. It's about regaining sovereignty over your time, your choices, your energy. It's about moving with intention rather than compulsion. The world may tell you to never stop, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is exactly that. Pause, reassess, and choose to move again only when it truly aligns with who you are. Number 3, rest as resistance. In a world that worships productivity, rest becomes a radical act. We live in a culture that equates worth with output, that praises exhaustion as evidence of ambition, that teaches us to measure our value by how much we can endure before breaking. We're told to hustle, to grind, to earn our rest, as if rest is a privilege reserved for the deserving instead of a necessity for the living. And so we learn to feel guilty when we stop. We rest, but not really. We scroll, we plan, we multitask even in our stillness, afraid of being perceived as unproductive. Yet the truth is, real rest is not laziness, it's rebellion. It's the refusal to let external systems dictate your worth. It's the moment you choose yourself over the machine that constantly demands more. Rest is resistance because it's how you reclaim your energy from a world that profits off your exhaustion. When you decide to rest, you disrupt the rhythm of societal expectation. You interrupt the endless cycle of consumption and comparison. You say, "I'm enough, even when I'm not doing." That's a radical statement in a world that tells you to always be more, earn more, achieve more. Resting is not giving up, it's taking back control. It's a conscious choice to exist beyond the pace that's been imposed on you. When you rest intentionally, you're not just recovering your strength, you're remembering your humanity, because human beings were never meant to operate like machines. We were meant to feel, to breathe, to pause, to notice the quiet moments between all the noise. The system that glorifies burnout doesn't want you to slow down because rest makes you see clearly. And clarity leads to awareness. Awareness leads to questioning, and questioning leads to change. Rest is not the absence of purpose. It's the space where purpose renews itself. It's in the moments of silence when your mind is not consumed by performance that you rediscover your creativity, your compassion, your balance. But rest is uncomfortable at first because it forces you to confront what you've been avoiding. When you stop, you face your own emptiness, your neglected needs, your unspoken exhaustion. That's why so many people run from rest. It's easier to stay busy than to feel. But healing doesn't happen in constant motion, it happens in stillness. Rest is where your nervous system resets, where your emotions unravel, where your soul begins to exhale after holding its breath for too long. It's in that space that your inner voice, the one drowned by noise and obligation, finally starts to speak again. To rest in a restless world is to resist the pressure to prove yourself every moment of your existence. It's to step out of a collective delusion that your worth is something you must constantly earn. When you rest, you're not falling behind. You're falling back into alignment. You're choosing peace over pace, presence over productivity, depth over distraction. Resting is an act of defiance against everything that tries to convince you that you're only valuable when you're producing. And that quiet defiance is where your power begins to return. Number 4, restarting without shame. Starting over is one of the most human things we can do. Yet it's also one of the hardest. The world around us glorifies consistency, stability, and certainty, as if changing direction means we've failed at the one we were on. We are taught to cling to our choices, to defend them even when they stop making sense, to keep walking a path that no longer feels like ours simply because we started it. But life doesn't unfold in a straight line. It bends, it breaks, it redirects. Restarting isn't evidence that you're lost. It's proof that you're still listening to yourself. The shame attached to beginning again doesn't come from within. It's inherited from a society that worships permanence. People will tell you that quitting, resetting, or walking away means weakness, but in truth, it's one of the strongest acts of self-awareness there is. To restart means you've had the courage to admit that something wasn't right, and the humility to try again. The shame of restarting often hides beneath the fear of judgment. You worry that people will think you wasted time, that they'll whisper about how you couldn't make it work, that your restarts define your worth. But restarts don't erase what came before. They integrate it. Every mistake, every detour, every collapse holds data about who you are and who you're becoming. Starting again doesn't mean starting from nothing. It means starting from experience, from wisdom, from scars that taught you where not to step. There's something profoundly honest about restarting. It strips you of pretense. It forces you to face yourself without the layers of validation and identity that once kept you comfortable. It's not about abandoning your past, but about outgrowing it. Sometimes we stay in situations long after they've stopped nourishing us because we think endurance equals strength. We fear that letting go makes us unreliable, flaky, or incapable. But staying where your soul has already left is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. Restarting asks for honesty, and honesty asks for loss. It means grieving the version of you who thought they had it all figured out. It means walking into uncertainty without the armor of old routines. But what comes after that grief is freedom, the kind that only comes when you stop performing for the life you've outgrown. Restarting is permission to evolve. It's choosing growth over image, healing over pride, truth over comfort. The shame begins to fade the moment you realize you don't owe anyone the version of yourself that no longer feels alive. Every time you restart, you reclaim ownership of your story. You stop letting fear, expectation, or failure define your next move. You stop seeing your past as wasted time and start seeing it as preparation. The courage to start again is what keeps you human, humble, and awake. You will outgrow dreams, people, and paths. And that's not inconsistency, that's evolution. Restarting without shame means accepting that your life doesn't have to make sense to anyone else but you. It means embracing the fluidity of becoming again and again without apology. Number 5, refocus through stillness. There's a kind of clarity that only comes when everything goes quiet. In a world built on distraction, stillness has become almost unnatural. We are constantly pulled into motion by our phones, our fears, our ambitions, never realizing how much of ourselves we lose when we stop being still. We confuse activity with awareness, believing that if we keep moving, we must be getting somewhere. But constant motion blurs vision. It turns life into a blur of moments that never get fully lived. Stillness, on the other hand, is uncomfortable because it strips away all the noise that numbs us. It forces you to meet yourself as you are, without the comfort of busyness. To refocus through stillness is to stop trying to fix, chase, or prove, and instead to listen to the subtle signals of your body, to the quiet truths that your mind hides under layers of noise. It's realizing that peace isn't something you find in the world. It's something that begins when you stop running from yourself. When you allow yourself to become still, the chaos doesn't vanish immediately. It gets louder. Your thoughts race. Your insecurities surface. Your regrets whisper. You notice how restless your mind has become, how uncomfortable you are with silence. But that discomfort is the first sign of awakening. It's the detox from overstimulation, the withdrawal from a life lived on autopilot. Most people avoid stillness because it reveals everything they've been avoiding. But it's only when you stay long enough in that silence that you begin to see what's truly driving you. You start noticing what feels forced, what feels aligned, and what feels like noise. Refocusing isn't about setting more goals or tightening your grip on control. It's about loosening it. It's about surrendering enough to see clearly again. The answers you're looking for rarely appear in the rush. They come in the pause between your next decision and your next breath. Stillness recalibrates your perception. It helps you distinguish between what's urgent and what's important. In silence, you begin to hear the faint hum of your intuition, the voice that's been drowned out by deadlines, opinions, and distractions. That voice doesn't shout, it whispers, it doesn't demand, it guides. When you become still enough to hear it, you start making choices that come from depth rather than desperation. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop chasing validation and start honoring alignment. This is the essence of refocusing, returning to the center where clarity lives. It's a process of stripping away everything that isn't you, everything that's been projected onto you, everything that you've been told you should be. Stillness gives you the space to see what actually matters. Refocusing through stillness doesn't mean abandoning ambition or withdrawing from the world. It means moving with intention instead of impulse. It means acting from presence, not pressure. It's about finding that quiet space within you where you can reset your lens and see your life with fresh eyes. When you stop long enough to listen, you realize that most of what felt urgent was never truly important. You realize that clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being more aware of why you're doing it at all. In stillness, you stop chasing meaning and start creating it from within. Number 6, long-term vision over short-term noise. In an age where everything demands your attention, holding on to a long-term vision feels almost rebellious. We live surrounded by noise, notifications, opinions, quick wins, endless comparisons. Everywhere you turn, there's pressure to show progress, to be seen, to keep up. The world rewards immediacy, not patience. It celebrates speed, not depth. And somewhere in this storm of urgency, people start mistaking movement for meaning. They chase short-term gratification because it offers the illusion of success. But the truth is, the things that matter most, growth, mastery, peace, purpose, are built in silence and time. Long-term vision is not glamorous. It's slow, repetitive, often lonely work that requires you to stay focused while everyone else is distracted by what's trending. It's choosing to stay grounded in what's real instead of chasing what's loud. The danger of short-term noise is that it constantly tempts you to trade your long-term fulfillment for temporary validation. You post, you perform, you get a reaction, and that reaction becomes addictive. The dopamine hit of attention tricks you into believing you're advancing when in reality, you're drifting. You start living in response to others instead of in alignment with yourself. The noise becomes your compass. You lose your ability to wait, to build, to nurture something unseen. But vision requires patience. It requires trust in the unseen process, belief in the unseen progress. You can't grow something meaningful if you're always uprooting it to see how far it's come. Long-term vision demands faith in seasons, the understanding that some growth happens underground, invisible until it's ready to bloom. The short-term noise will make you doubt that silence, but it's in that silence that real transformation is taking place. Choosing long-term vision means committing to something deeper than attention. It means committing to integrity. It's the decision to show up even when no one's watching, to keep building even when no one understands. It's resisting the pressure to prove yourself every day and instead focusing on becoming someone who doesn't need to. You begin to measure success differently, not by how much noise you make, but by how aligned your daily actions are with your larger purpose. You start to see that consistency matters more than applause, and that delayed gratification isn't punishment, it's preparation. Every meaningful pursuit takes longer than you expect, but that's what gives it weight. The longer the journey, the stronger the roots. Long-term vision doesn't mean you ignore the present. It means you stop letting it control you. You start navigating from intention rather than impulse. You learn to listen to your own rhythm instead of the world's tempo. The noise will always be there, loud and convincing, telling you to hurry, to compete, to prove. But vision whispers. It moves slowly, deliberately, anchored in purpose. The difference between those who build something lasting and those who burn out chasing validation lies in their ability to endure silence. When you live with long-term vision, you stop chasing moments that impress others and start creating a life that fulfills you from within. Life isn't asking you to do more. It's asking you to be more aware, to reset when you've lost balance, to restart when you've drifted off course, and to refocus when the world gets too loud. Every pause, every silence, every moment of stillness is not a step back. It's a return to alignment. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the courage to begin again, each time with deeper clarity and quieter strength. Because the most powerful transformation doesn't happen when you push harder. It happens when you finally choose to start over with intention.